Hi there. Thank you for tuning in to Saving the Republic podcast, our episode one. Today we're going to be talking about the coronavirus and its freak out and its many facts and lies. We're going to be talking about the media bias, and we'll be covering a little bit of the 2020 election. All right, let's introduce ourselves real quick before we dive in. I am Ethan Holland. I go to UT Arlington. Here we have Nate.
Hi, I'm Nate Dunning. I go to the University of Mary Hardin Baylor.
Hey, I'm Skylar Waxman. I go to Texas Tech University.
I'm Kelly, and I go to the University of North Texas.
All right. So today we're going to dive in just directly into the topics. The obvious one that's kind of the elephant in the room that we can't really not talk about is the coronavirus. So let's talk about Nate. What's some of the protocol that you're having to deal with over there?
Well, I don't know too much about the whole protocols, but I just know I'm trying to keep my hands washed and sanitized. I know we've shut down. I'm actually still on campus here at UMHB, so there's pretty much no one here. It's pretty dead. All of the buildings are either closed or swipe in only, which normally they're all open and easy to access. But
Wow.
there's just no one here now. Like, there's maybe 50 people on campus.
And Skylar, you're not even in Lubbock anymore. What are you doing?
Yeah, nobody's in Lubbock right now, basically, since the chick walked into Rosa's with coronavirus. I'm in Waco, but I went to HEB earlier, and this guy, walked right up beside me while I was trying to pick out some bananas, and I had to give him the evil eye and be like, dude, 6 feet. So, taking that to heart. HEB is doing an awesome job, too. Go HEB.
And Kelly, how are you being affected over there in Denton?
I'm in Denison right now. We're not too affected. I think we have 9 cases, but we still have a lot of stuff open, so it's not super bad yet. So hopefully it stays that way, but I'm just staying home.
Cool. So Skylar, you want to talk to us a little bit about the origins of the coronavirus and the truth?
Oh, the truth? Well, it came from China because some dude ate a bat, pretty much, and so it was the meme of the dominoes. Basically, the guy ate the bat, and now I can't go to class. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of the common misconceptions of the coronavirus. Guys, bear with us. This is our first podcast, our first recording, and we're not in person either because COVID. But Kelly, you want to talk to us about some of the misconceptions that are kind of triggering?
Okay, so I don't know that this is necessarily a misconception, but I know a lot of people think that the virus got started in a lab and got leaked from it. I don't know if I necessarily believe that or not, but I have seen pictures of Google Images where the lab was, and it was right next to Wuhan. But then after all the virus stuff went down, not Google Images, but Google Maps now shows it 20 miles away. And I don't know, I guess it's a lot of conspiracy theory stuff, but I mean, I think there's enough evidence that maybe it actually did get leaked like that. But that's just my thoughts on it. So
I've been on that same boat. The whole, it came out of a lab. Nate, what do you think about it coming out of a lab? You agree? You think it's crazy? You think we're stupid?
So I think it is a possibility that it did come from a lab. I'm waiting to make a firm decision on that until the real answer has come out, the official answer. But one interesting thing to note is when looking at Google Maps, China actually uses a different satellite system to record their mapping internally. So if you look at the edges of China, at least this was as of maybe last year, you could go and see roads that wouldn't line up with where they enter another country because of that different mapping system.
I don't think it came from a lab. Like I watched the YouTube video, so I'm pretty much an expert on it at this point. And it definitely seems like it came from the Chinese wet markets. Like they literally eat like bats and like.
You want to explain to us a little bit
rodents.
more? I was investigating some of those wet markets this morning, and it's a little.
Yeah, like in China, like literally in Wuhan, they have like wild animals that they eat, and they literally will stack different wild animals in cages on top of one another, and so various bodily fluids will get onto one animal into another, and it's just a disgusting thing. Kelly has been lost, but literally all these wild animals are coming together in one place, and then they get slaughtered, and blood and yada yada gets on everything else, and it's absolutely disgusting. And that's what happened in the SARS epidemic, and that's what's happening here. So it's very it's actually kind of predictable that it would happen, it would originate there. Yeah.
So I have a really hard time trusting the stats that come out of China, because I don't know if y'all saw, but correct me if I'm wrong, but they reopened their wet markets like
Yeah.
a few days ago. I think.
That's like,
So now
dude,
we're all sitting
doing?
here at home locked down because some people got infected, and it's a lot of people, but it's a lot of people, and we can talk about that in a second. But China, the whole world, whether you like China or not, the entire world is like, you kind of can't leave China out of it. China got involved somehow, and they're just going to open the wet markets back up because we're supposed to trust their statistics.
So also on top of that, this is at least some research I've done has shown that there was in that lab, they were doing research on different types of coronaviruses. It's not like specified what type of research they were doing, but with it being, fairly close, it is a possibility that somehow a virus transferred from that lab to some kind of animal at that wet market.
So how do y'all feel about, for example, I may or may not be in Tarrant County right now. How do y'all feel about the stay-at-home order to April 30th? Or I don't know what y'all's cases are.
I think that shutting down for this long is going to be just as detrimental, if not more so, than the virus itself, because we can't do anything. The economy can't do anything. I mean,
so the cure is worse than the virus is basically what you're saying.
In this case, yeah, I could see. I don't know that this is necessarily the cure, but I don't have like a perfect answer. I think it does make sense to move stuff online, and it did make sense to shut down for a few weeks, but I saw like Dallas County is shut down till May 20th. I think
actually I saw the Dallas Morning News walk that back. It wouldn't surprise me if they actually do it.
No, it is. Dallas County is shut down on May 20th. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, that's what I think.
We'll be talking about fake news later, so we'll address stuff like this. Where you're living your day to day and you don't know if you're on lockdown or not.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but Dallas County is their Dallas County judge. Crap, what's his name? Yeah, he shut them down until May 20th, and he called out like Hobby Lobby, and basically they're actually police that went to a Hobby Lobby and they were like, y'all have to close and your employees have to go home. Like they went to the store, shut them down, and really it's like, why is Hobby Lobby having to shut down when like there are probably other places?
Abortion clinics are still open because they're essential business, but gun shops are closed and other stores are closed.
Hobby Lobby, as far as I'm concerned, I was at Hobby Lobby a few days ago, and they were saying that they're only open because they have homeschool supplies, which is true. They do have a lot of that. And I guess they also have fabric, which people are using to make masks. So I know a lot of people here have been mad that Hobby Lobby is still open in our town, but there's an actual reason behind it. So.
Yeah. So obviously, again, this is our first podcast, but because of the time frame of coronavirus, it's kind of hard not to talk about the coronavirus but I can't speak for the others. I really did not. I wasn't very.
I really haven't
excited
heard
to
a
talk
lot
about
of
this
it.
topic.
I haven't heard a lot of it in the news actually. Haven't really seen much about it.
Well, I mean, I turned on
Just
last
joke.
night. I
It's a
turned
joke.
on what's today, Saturday? Oh, okay, good. It was a joke.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
thank God. I was
coronavirus.
like,
What is
bruh.
that?
No, literally last night I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch some Tucker Carlson. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna watch it. I haven't been watching news for like the last week just because I'm tired. I'm burnt out. I've been watching podcasts and stuff on YouTube, but not like Fox. So last night I'm like, all right, let me watch some Tucker Carlson. I turn it on for like 10 minutes and they're still talking about the coronavirus, and I was like, no, forget it. Turn it off. I know about it at this point. Like if you don't know about it at this point, and if you don't know the facts about it, like you got to be kidding. I mean, seriously.
So I think another aspect to talk about, while everything is on lockdown, I haven't seen anything talking about this, but most states have some sort of state vehicle inspection. I feel like those expiration dates should be extended at least until we're out of lockdown, just because like everything is closed pretty much. Like,
Yeah, that's a really good point. I haven't even thought about that.
my
I
car.
mean, go ahead.
My car expired in March, for example. So I now have expired tags
I'm calling
on my
the police.
car. Yeah, do it.
Yeah,
I
Nate Dunning's car is expired.
Yeah, I have my phone over my headphones.
Yes, that definitely works.
So yeah, but I actually haven't been able to find a place where I can still get my car inspected.
My sticker expired in December and I replaced it in February, so I'm in the clear until 12/20. But anyways, no, but I mean that's a really good point that I mean a lot of people haven't really been considering. I mean, and it's not just that; it's like evictions are suspended for I think another 30 days. I think they'll extend it more. They're going to do various things with mortgage. You have the stimulus bill, all this stuff. Speaking of the stimulus package, how do y'all feel about the stimulus package?
Well, I don't want to.
Some of us.
Terrible.
Okay, hold on. I want to make a public service announcement real quick. Yes, obviously we're all conservative. It's kind of hard to walk around that. We're all conservative. However, Skylar, for example, is like libertarian. Like Ron Swanson abolished the government. I hate
Libertarian
everybody.
leaning.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
No.
Libertarian leaning. Yeah.
Anyway, but so some of us are going to feel a little bit differently about the stimulus package. So
Yeah.
anyway,
it
but
sucks.
But okay, so Skylar thinks it sucks. Why does it suck, Skylar?
If you look at, so it's a $2 trillion stimulus package, and if you do the math, so there are over 300 million people total in the U.S. There are like over 100-something million like working age adults. So if you were to take the $2 trillion divided up by either 300 million or 100, however many million, it comes like, if you divide it by 100-something million, then it works out to a lot more than the $1,200. And like, why is that? And the reason is because there's a ton of pork. Like 3/4 of the bill is pork. So first off, the $2 trillion I think is too high, no matter how you spend it. But still, let's say we have to spend $2 trillion. So that's what we're doing. If you break that, if you give it directly to individuals, then then individuals benefit directly, and you'd get like 6,000 or however much if it's just to working adults. But yeah, so there's that.
Well, my thing on that is that the $2 trillion, something that a lot of people aren't talking about, is just because the Senate or the Congress appropriated $2 trillion does not mean that it has to be spent. We don't have to spend
it will be
all
spent.
$2 trillion.
It will be spent.
It will because
and they're going to spend at least that.
It will because of the swamp. But the point is, some of it can be appropriated to other stuff. What a lot of the times we don't really look at is bills that come out of Congress, like a quarter of the time, don't actually go to what they're meant for.
They're going to appropriate
the swamp
it
problem.
to,
It's part of the establishment, whatever. But
they'll spend it on
some of it
lobsters
is
and crabs like they do like they do at the end
or
of every
giving
fiscal
themselves
year.
raises.
At the end of every fiscal year, they waste it. Yeah, so that's what they'll do.
But the thing is, you're talking about forgivable loans to people to pay their payroll. So I mean, there's good stuff in it. Now there is bad stuff in it that I don't like
Steve
at all.
Mnuchin, yeah, but Steve Mnuchin actually like screwed with that. So Justin Amash had a few tweets about that, so you could look that up.
So I think another important thing is one of the things that they did in the bill was they gave I think it was $25 million in relief to the Kennedy Center.
Yeah.
And that was basically so they wouldn't furlough any employees or fire any employees over the virus. But
okay, but did you see that Huckabee is now in the leadership of the Kennedy
but
Center?
at this point they have furloughed a ton of different artists and they're kind of people that they represent. So
I think there was some deeper stuff to that Kennedy Center thing.
But that 25
however, when Huckabee got put on the leadership, it calmed me down because it's Mike Huckabee. So I mean, it's going to be bad to a certain extent.
Well, I don't care who it is. It could be
the thing with all right. So again, some of us are going to disagree with each other, and some of us feel differently about certain stuff. I tend to trust in some of my politicians a little bit more than other people.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
I like Mike Huckabee. Sue me. Don't really care.
Oh, he's probably a good guy, but
I'll lean back on it. But when you have good guys on boards like that, it's comforting. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with the $25 million appropriation, but it calms me down a little bit to know.
But what I'm saying is the whole point of giving this money to businesses and companies was so that workers wouldn't be furloughed.
Well, yeah.
But then they immediately took the $25 million and furloughed their employees.
Yeah, it's great for Kennedy Center people, but like anybody else that's not connected, like, okay, you're out of luck. Sorry, you still fired.
Why are tax dollars going to fund them furloughing employees and pocketing $25 million?
Yeah. Kelly, how do you feel about the Pelosi trying to slip in airplane emissions, USPS debt control? What was the other one? Solar tax credits,
I think that's
and then
crazy.
Many others.
Like, I think we should be focused on helping people and not all of that garbage. Like, we're going to have time to worry about that after this is over. I think that was really just a bad move, and it was kind of tacky. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, we got the strong words of Kelly.
All right, for our next topic, we're going to be talking about the 2020 Democratic primary, Bernie versus Biden. So, Nate, how do you feel about how the primary's gone so far? And what are your thoughts about the primary?
So I think a lot to do with the primary has basically been the DNC being the DNC and pretty much picking the guy that they want. A lot of the way their election system works for the primaries is it's done by superdelegates, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, at least some of it, yeah.
So it's really hard to get a Democrat nominated that isn't backed by superdelegates. So I think Bernie's been kind of in trouble by that.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like the two that they have right now are not the best choice out of all that were running.
My question is, do you guys think that Biden was their original idea of a candidate, or do you guys think that the DNC really wanted somebody else who dropped out?
I think they probably wanted Biden because I feel like he had the most name recognition. And I mean, if you don't hear him talk, he's a good candidate. Like, he's okay until he opens up his mouth and he says something like,
yeah, he has all the credentials, but then he's like actually terrible at talking. And yeah.
I mean, essentially, I think the DNC wants 4 more years of Obama.
Oh, that's exactly what they want, because
basically,
it's way deeper than that. It's way deeper than that, and that's where we can get into deep state and all that, but that'll be another podcast. But I think that because that's a whole other thing. But I think that Biden, I think that ideally, because he's VP, it's kind of hard to get around the fact that he kind of has to be our candidate. But if you look at his track record, especially at the debates, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie just go after him. And he's making all these talking points, and it's like, dude, You did the complete opposite of that when you were with Obama. You're trying to go to the White House to undo everything that you did for 8 years.
Yeah, Biden's just been like, his whole campaign has just been so like still, like there's been no passion or excitement. Like at least with the Bernie people, like they're like fired up. Like who's hardcore, like, just like on fire for Joe Biden? Like
Not
where are those
really
people?
anybody.
Yeah.
If they are on fire, it's because they hate Trump. They're never Trumpers, so they'll be on fire for anybody. However,
Yeah.
if Bernie, at this point, I don't see Bernie getting a nomination. I really don't. He stopped paying for his ads. He's not running ads anymore. So, or at least not to the amount that he was. And so I don't know about that. I think he's done. And I think it's because nobody wants him. Nobody on the right likes him. Nobody on the left likes him, except for, a handful of senators.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to put their name next to Bernie. And it's
his campaign is just sort of like fizzled out. It's just been a slow death, especially with coronavirus stuff. It's like nobody's really thinking about this all, and it's like, oh, Joe Biden's inevitable. Like, I am inevitable. Like he's done that with all the just all the candidates have, like Tulsi Gabbard endorsed Joe Biden. Nope, like that was just totally out of left field. Yeah, everybody's just like falling in line, just like they did with Hillary. Like eventually, when Bernie drops out, he's probably gonna endorse Joe, but like it's just they're getting their guy. The DNC is getting their guy again, and we'll see how that works. I mean, I guess they didn't learn from 2016, but
and so now the product of this is the youngest man in the election is Trump at 73 years old. And Trump, though, I mean, he does not act like he's 73 years old. The youth vote. But literally, I'm just trying to picture the debates. It's gonna be so funny. Biden's gonna be like, because you have Biden on clip saying,
you know what? Never
like
mind.
Donald.
I don't
And he's
need
like,
my
oh wait, I
time.
misspoke. It's like, dude.
That was a dumb thing to say. That was a stupid way to put. That was a stupid way to put it.
Well, another thing to keep in mind about it is, I think there was a poll, and I think it was something like 15% of Bernie Sanders supporters will vote for Trump over Bernie, or not Bernie, over Biden. Just because they feel like the DNC has screwed them over twice with Hillary and now possibly Biden.
I have a friend who's a young Democrat leader, if you will, and she's full Bernie, and I've been sending her like videos of Bernie's talking about stuff, or praising Cuba, like, hey, I don't want to say Cuba's good, but they do a lot of this stuff good. It's okay, yeah, they also kill thousands of people, but whatever. I guess we're not going to talk about that. And so I told her, I'm like, hey, you realize Bernie's done. Who you gonna go for, Biden or Trump? She's like, well, I guess I'll have to go for Biden. And then since then, I've been sending her gradually little articles on Biden and little clips of him speaking. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not going to vote. And I've been asking her questions about stuff. And I'm like, bro, that's literally how Trump thinks. Do you not understand? I'm pretty sure you're an independent. I don't think you're a full left Democrat. A lot of the views. And so I think that that's kind of happening, not just with her. She's an example of a lot of youth. Or this is kind of a political realignment. They're seeing Bernie and they're seeing Biden, and they're like, oh, I don't know.
How do y'all think coronavirus is going to affect the presidential race? Like, I've seen people saying that, like, they're not voting for Trump because he hasn't handled it well. I mean, those were people on the left anyway, so I'm not sure that really counts. But do y'all have any opinions on that?
Well, two things. When you have Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo praising Trump's efforts on the coronavirus, he's doing a good job. Those two dudes hate Donald Trump, and they're out here talking about how good of a job it is, although they do want their funding back because it was taken due to sanctuary cities. And then the coronavirus, I think it's ruined Biden's chances. I don't know about Nate, Skylar, and Kelly. I think that coronavirus has just ruined Biden's chances because he can't campaign, he can't do anything, and Trump already has. Everybody's eyes are on the Trump administration.
I mean, I disagree. I think like whenever the economy like comes to a halt, like that's the biggest thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so whatever the cause of that is, in any case, whether it's the financial crisis Like, that's really bad for a president. So regardless of how he actually is handling it, and I think he's actually doing okay. That what people see, like what affects them is that like they've lost their job, and Trump is the president. While a lot of people are gonna think, well, let me vote for the other guy. But yeah, as far as campaigning, I mean, that's nobody's really campaigning. I mean,
I would disagree with that. I mean, yeah, I think it has a big factor of people turning on their press conferences like, "Hey, I'm here sitting unemployed. What are you doing to help me?" But I mean, I personally, not just because I'm going to vote for Trump this year. I'm just saying I think he's handled it to the best ability that he could, given his resources, given his surroundings, his people in the executive, at FEMA and all these other places. But I wouldn't go out and say that they're going to go vote for Joe Biden, because look at how they handled H1N1, for example, or any of these other viruses. It was terrible. Or the swine flu. Oh no, it's a joke compared to this.
But those things didn't, like, I think it was like 13 whenever the swine flu happened. Whichever one was 2009. Maybe that was H1N1. Whatever. But that didn't really have an impact on the economy or really anything. Like, people were, I guess, a little bit careful. But this is something that we haven't dealt with since like 1918. Like, this is really huge, and so there's really no way to spin it like this is a good thing for Trump. Like, if you look at
I mean, his approval rating's gone up 5 points since coronavirus started.
I mean, I don't think you can spin this as a good thing for anyone, but
no, you can't. You can't.
Well, I would say it is a good thing for Joe Biden's chances to get elected. It's not a good thing to happen, but
I don't think it's a good thing at all. He's posting videos from his basement instead of doing campaigns, and they're getting 1,000 views, 2,000 views.
And on top of that,
7-minute speech.
Yeah, they're heavily edited too, like very obviously edited.
Oh yeah.
If you go to his like live performances on like debates and stuff, he's not like this. He's not quick. He's not,
right.
And he just stumbles over his words too much.
Well, I think
the difference in this situation is the global economy is getting hit, not just the United States of America, the global economy. That's where Trump will, have an ability to make something of it.
Well, we're not voting for like the UN. We're just voting here. But no, I think probably upwards of 90% of people have already decided, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden if he's the guy, or I'm going to vote for Trump. Probably maybe upwards of 95%. It's really like a small number of people that they're vying for. And like those people, they're not going to be hardcore one way or the other, most likely. But this could put Joe Biden just over the edge to where he would have enough to win. I really hope not, but because this isn't really something that Trump's responsible for at all. But yeah, how he handles it is definitely going to matter. And then what really is going to be a big deal is how long do we keep everything shut down for? If this lasts months, then I think it's going to be pretty hard for Trump to win. But if we can sort of start to get things going again, and some people can get back to work, I think Trump will have a lot better chance. November is what, like, so we're in April. That's about 7 months. 7 months, right? So 7 months. I mean, that's a pretty long time. Nobody knows how things are going to recover. I think the peak is supposed to be like in the next few weeks, the peak of cases and coronavirus deaths. But yeah, I think that's going to play a big part of how this all goes.
Sure. I kind of want to get Kelly's perspective on this. Kelly, how do you think that this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. Do you think that Trump has lost any of his supporters since 2016? Do you think anybody that voted for Trump this year is like, okay, that was a big mistake? Or do you think he's gained?
I think he's probably gained. I know that a lot of people aren't going to the Bernie supporters, I'm sure some of them might switch over once Joe gets the nominee because, I mean, what else are they going to do? And I really don't think that he's lost any supporters because he hasn't, like, I don't agree with everything he's done, but he hasn't been that terrible, so I don't know what would have caused him to lose supporters.
Yeah.
So I think he has a good chance of winning still, but I definitely think he's gained more than he's lost at this point.
I think he's kept more of his promises than most of us thought that he would. You know, promises made, promises kept. And I think through that, it'll be good. And I think now his reputation's better than it was in 2016. So I think he can use that to, because the problem in 2016 was, oh, he's not moral, you know, whatever, you know, he cheats on his wife, etc., which I don't agree with, but, you know.
I think the biggest thing he has going for him is that, and this is sort of, and this is obviously the positive and the negative, is that he, you know, is always tweeting. He's always putting himself in the news. Whereas like with Obama, it's like, you know, we didn't really hear about him you wouldn't hear about him unless you were like really trying to listen to him, trying to pay attention. But he's really fired up the Republican Party. So Republican voters are like, they love him. And so, and if Joe Biden's the nominee, on the other hand, Democrats are, you know, if anything, they'll vote for him out of, you know, dislike for Trump. But that's what Trump's done to the Republican Party. You know, he's really, everybody, all the Republican conservative people that I know love Trump, and they're probably going to vote for him. Whereas Joe Biden, like, the people might hate Trump, but I don't know if that's going to be nearly enough to vote against Trump rather than for Joe Biden.
So even the people I know in the Republican Party that aren't necessarily for Trump would much rather have Trump than Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, everybody wants. Oh, that's part of the reason why he won 2016. Nobody wanted to see a Clinton presidency. Nobody wanted that. That was going to be real bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like, I wouldn't say that nobody wanted Trump, because like Hillary got the popular vote, so like good gold star for her. Like that's a nice little trophy.
You got LA, New York, and San Francisco. Good for you.
Yeah, exactly. You got
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, so I wouldn't say that like nobody wanted Hillary, but yeah, people weren't on fire for Hillary, and I think like that's, if nothing else, that's the thing for Obama, is that people thought, you know, hope and change was going to happen, whereas like Hillary was like, you know, let's just continue and let's just keep the status quo.
I personally think Trump is going to lose the popular vote even heavier than he did in 2016, just because the left is so like, but I do think that he's going to get more votes than he did. I mean, look at New Hampshire, for example. Look at all these primaries. What nobody's talking about is how many votes Trump is getting. He is blowing it out of the water compared to Obama, and we're talking about incumbent. We're talking about like at the time, if you look at all the other presidencies, his voter turnout is so much higher.
In the primaries, yeah. I mean, it's been really crazy. It's been really high, which I'm not sure how it's gonna what the trend's gonna be with this coronavirus, but because like Texas primary got delayed until July, so yeah. So I think we've pretty much covered a lot. So let's get on to our next topic.
Okay, and so our next topic is going to be on media bias. Basically, we want to talk about how the media has its different biases. You know, everyone has a bias. The media tends to have one in particular bias. Ethan, would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Well, sure. And you know, bias is one thing. When I, like, for example, when I watch Fox News, okay, I know it's going to be a little biased. That does not mean that everything they're talking about is just made up statistics. When you have like the Washington Post posting when al-Baghdadi died, austere religious scholar passes away or something, and then they delete it, and then they delete it. The news, if you look at the news outlets in today's politics, they walk back like a good quarter of all of their articles. You'll see something, and then like a day later, you're like, wait, where'd it go? And the title changed. And then you're like, what?
Yeah.
Because now you can't find it anywhere because they know they messed up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with bias, CNN's bias is so, Fox has Democratic analysis, and the Republican ones on CNN though are so disappointing. They are not they're Democrats commenting from the Republican perspective. No, that's not going to work.
Yeah, what I think, I mean, we can sort of recognize Fox is a little more like is to the right, is a little conservative, but I think really the Fox only came out in necessity in response to give like a side to what's not being talked about. And like they came in 1996, and it was really the 2000 election that Fox News kind of like came on the spot. And it's really just out of necessity, because you would have CNN, this 24-hour news that was just presenting this left view, and conservatives really just weren't represented. And they were really, not just that they weren't being represented, but really like a totally like just not accurate view is presented of all these of news events.
And with CNN in particular, one of their problems, or I mean, I guess not problems for us, as caring individuals about the truth, they have a heavy international presence, not just domestic. They are everywhere in other countries. So I saw this article, CNN en Español. Yeah, that's basically all their viewership now, but we'll get to that. But CNN en Español, the Spanish one, they put the government of Trump accuses Maduro of, the narco terrorism and stuff that we did. And I'm like, okay, the government of Trump, sure, call it that, but the United States considered Maduro that. You can just tell how painful it is for them to speak positively of our country.
For those who don't know, Ethan is very fluent in Spanish.
Yes.
Anyway, I guess that's, yeah, I mean, we're not all, I've never left the state of Texas. I mean, we each have a different viewpoint.
Unfortunately, I have left Texas a couple of times.
Yeah, I hated to go, but you gotta see the world.
Yeah, at some point, you got to go to Oklahoma at some point. But I really do think, like for example, Kelly goes to UNT, University of North Texas. So I think media bias would be the strongest at UNT. Like Kelly, what's some of the stupidity you've had to put up with?
Like by your campus media.
Yeah, by your campus media, by
just media in general.
Students buying the viewpoint. Students at UNT, they're like, oh wow, Trump's racist because CNN said so.
Oh yeah, we get a lot of hate from both sides. Like there's some conservatives there, but they called us fascists because I was wearing my Trump shirt. I don't understand it either. Yeah. But most of the hate we get is from, most of it's from the left. And we had some old man like come up to us. He was from the Students for Bernie table. We were just out giving away cookies for Texas Independence Day. And he came up to me, like this 70-year-old man. I don't know what he was doing on campus. He's like, yeah, you guys are just a bunch of racists. Like, you only appeal to other racists. Like, that's usually their go-to, racist and fascist, but
and the viewers might be, or the listeners might be wondering, okay, what does this have to do with media bias? But the problem is that when you are constantly watching, for example, Don Lemon's show, at a certain point, you're gonna start buying what you're watching. If you start listening to a certain kind of music, your language will change a little bit shortly after you've watched that music. You listen to that music. I'm sorry. And that's where the problem with media being so biased comes into play, because you have professors that are using the New York Times as a reliable source, which sure, sometimes they, report the truth, but it's so
accidentally sometimes.
It's so much deeper than just they're lying. You have people on campus that are like believing all these things and crying about stuff because they feel strongly about it when it's a lie.
Yeah. Personally, from my experience just recently, some of our viewers and listeners may have seen this, but Campus Reform was the first to break this news that this Texas Tech professor, a physics professor of all things, not even a political science professor, this physics professor sent out an email to the physics department saying that if Trump were to die from coronavirus, this professor would consider becoming religious. And kudos to Campus Reform for covering it, but I haven't seen much coverage. I think there are literally 3 sources, including Campus Reform. Our campus newspaper hasn't said anything about it. It's just like baffling to me. Like maybe we need to just send it their way and let them know. But I think if it were a conservative professor wishing that Obama were to die from something, that would have been all over the place. That would have been all over the
Oh
news,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and it would have been covered locally. I haven't seen any Lubbock coverage, so not to like burn them down, but seriously, where's the coverage? Because
You
if it
can
were to
find
happen on
clips
one
of
side, it should
conservatives.
happen to the other side.
You can find clips of conservatives on, for example, Don Lemon's show, or any basically MSNBC. Most of these people, and they get cut off. They start making a point, and then they can't finish the point, and then they get cut off for what they're saying, because the reporters. I saw one where a conservative was going on, and he's like, "Don, you gotta let me finish what I'm saying. You gotta at least let me. Why'd you invite me on if you're not gonna let me say what I'm saying?" And then he throws him off. And he's like, "Yeah, when we have guests coming on here lying like
I think I
that, it
saw
just
what you're
doesn't."
talking about. Yeah.
It's insane. It is purely insane that they do that.
Mhm.
And you have people like Ben Shapiro who challenge AOC to debates, and then CNN and NBC and all this stuff cover it as, "Oh my God, Ben Shapiro catcalled AOC." It's like, okay, come on, seriously.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, another thing is just the way they're, in a lot of ways, predictable. Like Ben Shapiro called out, I forget which, it was a CNN host. I forget which host it was, but he called him out for essentially using an emotional only argument when speaking about mass shootings and such. So when Ben Shapiro called him out, this guy was planning on bringing out, I think it was it the kid or the family of one of the kids in one of these shootings, which it's a
Yeah.
terrible event to happen.
Yeah, you're talking about.
But
Yeah, there was this whole that whole event where that they had where they had like all these students, and then they had Dana Lash on, and they just all piled on to her, and CNN was there basically like fueling the flames.
Mm-hmm. This was Ben Shapiro. When he called him out for that, it essentially cut the show because he had no counter argument because he was planning on using that as the counter argument. But since Ben Shapiro called him out for using that, I mean, what else is he going to do? Like, it's a predictable bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, seriously. And some of the bias is so, for example, at an airport, you cannot go to an airport without seeing CNN. And if you look at, for example, a lot of people talk about, well, why does Trump have to say it's fake news? How would you feel if everything that you're doing is getting just destroyed on the media? And when the evidence is I think the American people at this point know which news sources is true and which one's not. And it just gets blown out of proportion, because if you look at Tucker Carlson's viewership, he gets, I think, 2.1 million views between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. CNN between like 5 p.m. and midnight get like 700,000. I think they
Yeah.
barely break a million. And then
The Weather
Hannity gets
Channel's probably
1.8.
doing better.
Laura, no, literally. And then Laura gets 1.6. It's insane. And then the reruns get more views than like prime time on CNN.
I mean, like, at least when I'm digesting news, I find it hard to take a ton of news channels actually seriously on anything they're reporting, just because I don't know if this is going to be walked back within the next 24 hours.
No, literally, and that's the problem. You don't know if you could be watching something and you're like, "Wow, that happened," and oh my, and then a day later you're like, you want to tell your friend about it, and then you look it up and it's gone. It was removed.
Okay, I'm here with the executive director of YCT, Manfred Wendt. Apologies for the background changes. We had some issues with connectivity on Zoom. Once again, here's Manfred Wendt, the executive director of the Young Conservatives of Texas.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? It's an honor to be y'all's first guest. It's always exciting to see students branch out on their own and try to do new things, especially with the people who they met inside YCT. Now, YCT stands for the Young Conservatives of Texas, which is the largest college organization in the state of Texas as far as different conservative clubs go. We are stay true to our names. We're only in Texas. And what we're known for across the state is our legislative ratings, which is the oldest in the state. We've been doing them since 1980, so we're very happy about that. We released our newest version in January So make sure if you're interested to see how conservative your state rep is, feel free to check that out. As we all know, in Texas, everyone claims to be conservative, but then the voting record is different once you actually see what they have voted on and how they actually did in Austin. So feel free to check that out at yct.org/legislation. And yeah, so what do we want to talk about today, guys?
So we were just discussing media bias. So how has media bias affected different YCT groups?
All right, so I've been with YCT since I think I joined in November of 2017 and then became the executive director in January of 2019. And since then, we haven't really seen media negatively affect YCT, but we have seen situations on different college campuses where media coverage may not be as positive as it would be if we were the other side. For example, at Trinity University, when they had a speaker denied for funding, the student-funded campus publication, they decided to make a quip about stuff being alt-right instead of reporting on what actually happened. And so a lot of times you'll have college journalists who are more interested in making cute remarks about how bad conservatives are instead of actually doing their job as student journalists and reporting the news. But I think where we see a lot more of a impact in terms of media bias is in the Texas media at large. For example, in 2018 with the Ted Cruz Beto race, we saw Beto O'Rourke, someone who'd accomplished essentially nothing, treated as if he was some sort of like deity sent from the heavens to be the next senator from Texas, and Ted Cruz, who was treated horribly by the media because he went to DC and dared to do exactly what he said he would do. I think we all remember the flowery media coverage where Beto O'Rourke was treated like he was the next Kennedy and all that sort of stuff, and Ted Cruz was treated like he was the devil. And so what we see in Texas is Connie Burton, a former state senator, actually is taking the media gap in Texas seriously and started a publication called The Texan, which I'm sure if you're in the conservative or sphere or you just look at news, you've probably seen an article from The Texan. And what makes The Texan really stand out is it reports actual news instead of just opinion pieces that they pretend are news. And when you read The Texan, you can't tell that it's written by, that the editor-in-chief is a former conservative state senator, et cetera. But you kind of figure it out because you're like, wait, this was just facts. Why isn't there more opinion in here? Or like, I feel like I'm reading a news article from the 18th century instead of now because we're so used to having so much opinion walking around pretending that it's news. And heck, you watch the press conference that Trump does every day for the coronavirus, and these people aren't interested in the coronavirus, they're just interested in trying to make Trump look bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there was like a One America News reporter that was there, and like everyone freaked out because like it's an actual like someone different from the mainstream like CNN and New York Times and ABC's. So it's kind of interesting.
That One America News reporter had asked Trump a question regarding some kind of article that the Washington Post had posted, saying, "How do you feel about news articles reporting that?" And Trump was like, "Who are you with?" And like One American News, like, "Oh, I love that question. You guys need more questions. You guys need to be in here more than most of these people." And I remember, I saw. Now, this might be borderline conspiracy, but from what I saw was that when that reporter had gone back to their when the reporter had gone back to their general area where all their stuff is, there had been notes saying like, "We know what you're trying to do. Stop it. Like, don't do that again." Because it's just such a swamp, today's media, that somebody tries to ask an honest question and now they're getting threats all the time.
Yeah.
I believe it was CNN that essentially is not going to the press briefings anymore. Like they're not airing those. They're airing other things in their place.
Oh, they go. They just don't air it because Jim Acosta gets destroyed. Mm-hmm. Jim Acosta and that there's another one, I totally forgot her name, but they stopped sending Jim Acosta so frequently because it's just not working out for him going against Trump. This is gonna get edited out. But this is gonna get edited out, so I'm really not tripping about a silence anymore.
So the coronavirus press conferences, what do y'all think about those?
Which ones? I wasn't able to find them on CNN.
Well, okay.
Oh, we got jokes on this podcast.
Yeah, that was really funny. There were a few where I was watching Trump and I was honestly concerned because, like, it seemed like he wasn't doing well, but I think he's really turned it around. Like, the last few I watched, he's been joking and stuff. I mean, not that this is, like, something to joke about, but he seems, like, back to himself, I guess. But I don't know. At first, I really don't think he was handling it well, but I don't know. He just seemed very off. Does anybody else know what I'm talking about?
I think he was just kind of disappointed that we had to extend it to April 30th, and that might have just kind of put him in a frustration for a little bit. But I don't know. There have been journalists that are like freaking out as asking questions, asking him like this fast, talking this, and he's like, chill.
Yeah.
Just chill. He's like, look around, nobody's freaking out. Just calm down. So I mean, he's maintained a steady peacefulness for once, which isn't really normal for Trump. But
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of watching the press conference is kind of sad, and it kind of makes you realize how far that media in this country has fallen. Because in past times, that the journalists would be asking actual useful questions, but I kind of watch the conferences because I think it's funny watching Trump just dunk on all these journalists. And we're dealing with a really sober moment of, hey, America's basically at war with a virus. What are we doing about it? And instead of appreciating the moment and trying to ask questions that Americans actually want to know the answer to, journalists just yell "Orange Man bad" and try to get him to screw up, instead of asking questions the American people want the answers to. So it's really it's kind of a sad cultural moment.
I see all the time with Dr. Fauci, like if there's a press conference where he's not there, then they're like, oh, he's like kicking Dr. Fauci to the curb.
Yeah.
But then whenever he is there, then they say, oh, you're wasting his time being at these press conferences. So you can't win with these people. Like they're just gonna ride regardless.
They try and pretend like who's at the Trump press conference is like an episode of Survivor, and like someone got kicked off the island because they decided to go work.
No, and through these press conferences, we're really seeing the true media, the disrespect that they have. Because if you hate Trump or you like him, he's the president of the United States. You don't talk over the president of the United States. If you ask him a question and he starts answering it, and then you're interrupting him and talking over him and interrupting him, it's like okay, look, feel how you want about him. It's a certain level of respect. You're here to ask him questions. So when he's answering the questions, let him answer them. Don't be so disrespectful and talk over him. I saw an interview with Kellyanne Conway, and she's trying to be all nice and polite and stuff, and they're trying to say racist and stuff, and she's like, I'm married to a Filipino. My kids are like part Asian, so try again with that. And then the reporters were like talking over her. Like, this is somebody in the presidential cabinet. You need to be respectful. And it's not just with that. It's with, you look at their shows, the way they treat their guests. You look at all this stuff. It's just embarrassing how far gone they are.
Yeah, totally agree.
Two Americas. Yeah, it's a shame to see the complete disrespect they have for their fellow citizens. Because I think that just because you vote Democrat, just because you vote Republican, doesn't determine your worth as a human being. But they want to pretend that everyone who votes the Republican primary is evil and needs to be destroyed because they're in the way of this utopia they want to try and create. Even though they're journalists, so that's not their job, but that's what they want to do. And it reminds me of when I was in college, this movie came out about, I think, the Washington Post and the Pentagon Papers, which was one of the first times the media had broken like a really big story. But the issue with the Pentagon Papers was the people in there reported like, here's what happened, here are the facts. Oh, yeah, sure, we got them through whatever process. But anyway, here are the facts of what the United States did. But ever since the Pentagon Papers and also like Watergate, all the journalists have viewed them through this lens of like, it's my job to go like get rid of the George Bush presidency or go get rid of the Donald Trump presidency instead of just reporting the facts.
Yeah, they all want to have like their big moment, like their Pentagon Papers. Also, the movie was like actually kind of wrong because it's really the New York Times that was really the big newspaper that was involved in that. But yeah, they all want to act like they're the next like who was his name? But yeah, I want to be the next like big reporter to break this amazing story.
Yeah, and if we look at the Beto Ted race again, when I first heard Beto O'Rourke's name, now granted, I was like a junior in high school, or junior going on senior, and I really wasn't in sync with politics as much as I am now. I mean, I was, but not as much now. And I saw Beto, and I was like, oh, they got a Hispanic going against Ted. I was like, that's kind of, and then I saw Beto O'Rourke. I saw all these people like, oh, he's whatever, he's so cool, and everybody talking about, oh, his charisma, whatever. And I look him up, and I'm like, wait, he's white. His name is Robert O'Rourke.
Robert Francis.
Yeah, Robert Francis O'Rourke. I was like, but I would have never known that because of the media. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then you see him speak Spanish. It's like, oh, you think because you're from El Paso, you can change your name to Beto, and now you just won the Hispanic vote? No.
I'm gonna say Biblioteca so loud.
Yeah, and then you have like the New York Times, or it may not be the New York Times, another mainstream media organization publish an article like, it's so important that we get Beto elected to increase diversity in the U.S. Senate. And it's like, oh, so we're going to replace Rafael Cruz with Robert Francis, and we're doing
exactly. We're going to replace a Cuban. We're going to replace a Cuban with a white guy to create diversity. I don't understand how that works. And not to mention, correct me if I'm wrong, but Beto's father-in-law is a billionaire, is he not?
Yeah, so he was bulldozing slums.
Now we have, replace Ted, whose dad, Rafael Cruz, worked so hard to get over here from Cuba, was broke, all this stuff, true American dream. And now you have Ted, who, went to Ivy League and is just killing it, versus, I have my father-in-law to fall back on who's a billionaire, and I'm a white guy who calls myself Beto. And, I mean, it's the genius marketing campaign, but it's sad.
He rides
I ride a skateboard on stage.
I think
I'm funded by Soros. I'm so cool. Like, no.
I think what's equally as bad is like what the media does do is what they don't do, which is like they ignore anything that might be damning towards Democrats, and like you just see like they constantly find little things that are totally irrelevant with Republicans, but then when Democrats do something, like I heard. So with the insider trading that happened, so Dianne Feinstein was one of the people that was trading with after getting briefed on coronavirus, like some of the impacts. And we heard from Dianne, or we heard all about like the Republican senators, but we didn't hear anything about Dianne Feinstein. It's like it's just. It shapes people's opinions because they hate these certain people, but then they totally ignore.
Like you look at Ukraine. You look at Ukraine. It's not just Biden's son involved in Ukraine. You're talking about Pelosi's kids, Mitt Romney's kids. You're talking about a wide range of politicians who were in the exact same boat as Biden. And then you wonder, well, how authentic was the impeachment hearings, which they weren't. But then you wonder, well, how authentic is it? And then you wonder, wait, Trump was quid pro quo, whatever. And then I heard what Biden did, and I'm like, wait, I'm so confused. I'm sitting here having to do all this research because the media has crafted it in a certain way because they're owned by the establishment.
Moral of the story is burn down the whole swamp. Like, just get rid of all of it. Literally. Yeah. All right. So I think we should.
Thank you, Manfred, for joining us, and we hope to have you in a future interview. Great work y'all do over there at YCT.
Yeah, thanks for getting on.
It's always great to end a conversation with Skylar saying burn down the swamp.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. Good luck with the rest of your project. I look forward to seeing what you guys do with it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. This has been episode 1, Saving the Republic, with Ethan Holland, Nate Dunning, Skylar Waxman, and Kelly Neidert. Hope to see you in future content.
If you like this content, please like, subscribe, share it. If you hated it, like, subscribe, and share it. Thanks for tuning in.